Cool. So this is our very informal first quote unquote lecture on all the JavaScript stuff you've been looking at for the last couple hours. Um, I don't really have material to present here because everyone's probably going to be in wildly different places. So I would just like to start off by doing a check-in with everyone. Anyone can raise a hand or just shout out. How are you finding JavaScript so far? And we'll go from there. Not at
I don't
all.
mind. Yeah, I don't mind starting.
Go for it.
Um, I am honestly, it's just like a lot that feels like you have to really like focus on syntax.
Hmm.
So it's not my favorite right now. Um, Transparency, but I think that it just takes time to kind of just get into the like repetitive motion of it. So yeah, that's how I'm kind of like feeling about all of like JavaScript as of right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like most programming languages, yeah, syntax it's going to be picky about stuff. JavaScript is a little bit more forgiving than other languages. Um, Definitely more forgiving than like Python. So it there is a little bit of wiggle room there, but with that wiggle room does come like weird exceptions and stuff. So yeah, it's yeah, like you said, literally just a matter of getting the hands on and playing with it. Kimberly, yeah.
So I'm kind of in the same boat. I'll full disclosure, I'm repeating.
Mhm.
So it's, I've had a little bit more experience. I still find it very convoluted.
Mhm.
And so I've been kind of going over the functions lab and again and again and again. And so it's one of those things where yeah, hands on keyboard is gonna be a phrase that you hear a lot,
Yeah.
and you can take all the notes and listen to all the lectures, but unless you're getting the practice in there, gonna you're just not gonna get it. It's really one of those things. One of the things, and I'll give this tip to anybody who's willing to take it. One of the things that I found really helpful is I went out and started building my own website, because you get this hands-on experience. You're not doing it from a lab, you're trying to repeat the exercises but kind of trying to interchange things so I would highly recommend that you get your own little playground to kind of go in and play with and kind of do stuff, because once you start getting into DOM manipulation and fetches, you're going to find it's going to be really helpful to have that kind of backup experience.
Yeah, for sure. Um, if you want a simple place to play that's on the web, not just a local one, doing setting up a GitHub pages thing is really easy. Basically, you can publish any repo to the web as a static HTML page. So that's a really good way to sort of get it out there and kind of play with stuff. But playing locally is fine too. It's totally good. Um, and yeah, I love what you said about sort of taking the stuff there and not just following along with lab, but building your own stuff or even just playing with it. I think the thing that's missing in most educational settings, this one included, I don't think it's any exception, is it's presented as work, and humans definitely learn 100 times better through play. And when I was learning programming, like it wasn't for a job. It was because, oh, this is cool and I want to see what I can do with it. And there's not really a lot of support for that in most educational settings. And so it's mostly up to your own sense of curiosity to say, oh, cool. I just did this function lab. It said, I can do this, that, and the other thing, and it puts this out. I wonder if I can do this with it. I wonder if it breaks if I do this. I wonder if I can, how many things I can pass into it. I wonder, what kind of things can happen inside and outside of it. And playing includes breaking. One of the big advantages of the what we're doing here is that code is infinitely malleable. I also do like woodworking and stuff, and it is less so. So we can make as many mistakes as we want, uh, revert them, fix them, change them, make copies, and worst case is you'll start over your thing. So yeah, play with stuff, break stuff, push push what stuff can be, interrogate the language and see like can it do this, and you can either do that by like playing with it or looking at the documentation and playing with them there. Yeah, great points. Isaiah, yeah, what do you got?
The conditional statements is just like kicking my behind. Like that part, I am just not, it's so much.
Yeah. Is there anything in particular that's getting you?
Um, I'm doing the test from the fork on the what is it? The control flow lab.
Mhm.
And that one is just like kicking my behind. I feel like I made something, but I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, that control lab. Uh, so yeah, the interesting thing, like the testing stuff that's in here, um, is kind of read only as it's presented. Um, for context, pretty much all the labs that you're going to have, and most, if not all, now of like the code challenges and stuff, will have tests associated with it. Um, Writing tests as you're coding along your own stuff is super fantastic. Basically, if you write your test great, you know exactly when you're done because all your tests pass. And if you wrote them well, that's enough. We don't really teach writing your own tests. We only teach using these tests right now. I've been pushing for testing stuff for a couple of years now, and but reading the tests in the labs is really interesting because it both kind of teaches you what it's looking for. So if you're having trouble getting a certain thing out of it, um, and you're not sure why it's failing, you can go into those tests. You can go into the test file. Test files are just JavaScript, just like anything else. And you can look for exactly what it's expecting. Um, and then maybe work back from, oh, if it's expecting this from here, why am I getting this other thing? Or how is it failing in that way? Um, Another thing you might notice with some tests is that they are um, they work to check if you got the right answer. They don't always check how you got the right answer. So I don't think we have any or many right now, but you could have a test for a function that's like, oh, it takes two things in, adds them, and returns the result. And the test is like, cool, I'm going to test it by calling that function with 2 and 3, and if it gets 5, it works. True, that will also work for a function that just returns 5 no matter what you pass to it. So often the tests will work but are not sufficient all around. So another way to play with stuff is two ways. Um, Start by, if it's, say it's that additional adding function, start by just writing something that just passed the test the easiest way possible. If you just need to return 5 to pass this test, do that. It's not going to teach you what it's trying to teach you, but it's an interesting way to see what is being tested. And if other tests fail because of that, then you can adjust that. So if there's two tests and the second one's like, oh, add -1 and 3, and it gets 2, that one will fail if you just return 5. Great. Then you can go back to your function and kind of say, what do I need to change to make both of those things happening? So, and the other way you can do it is look at the tests that are there, and you can actually add your own tests if you like. So, if the tests aren't, satisfying what you need, or if you're curious and you want to say, oh, I wonder if I wrote a test like this, if that would pass, or if I could check for this other thing. So, feel free to, once you clone stuff down, that is yours. You can mess with it, play with it as much as you want. Yeah, but it's interesting that the reading the tests and using tests is introduced in the same context as like, oh, and also here's the actual thing you're trying to learn. So it's kind of like throwing two things in there at once. Yeah, for sure. What other questions do we have? or feelings and thoughts.
Hey, so I actually have a question. This might be jumping ahead a little bit,
Yeah.
but I'm curious, as far as the content that we're supposed to complete this week going
Mhm.
into the project that's supposed to be next week, what do we imagine like the scope of that project is probably going to look like based on what we know? Is it probably going to be like a web page
Mhm.
or something like that? Like, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, great question. So to kind of take a step back, what so this first phase is going to be vanilla JavaScript used as the front end of a web thing. And we kind of break that into three parts. There's the DOM, like once you get JavaScript down, foundation. There's the DOM manipulation. The DOM is like the stuff on the page and how to get that, change it, update it, all that stuff. So there's DOM manipulation. There is events. So basically, the things that happen to make other things happen, handling clicks and typing and forms and all that. So there's DOM manipulation, there's the events, and then there's communicating with the backend. So you're going to be using a JSON server thing for now, but basically it's how do I make a static vanilla JavaScript page talk to a backend of some kind. So how do I get data? How do I send data? And so those three things put together, you can do a lot of stuff. And so basically it's the combining those three things that we're going to test for next week, assess for in the code challenges, and then the project week on week 3. That's when you're going to be taking those things and putting them together and making some kind of web page that uses those technologies. So you'll be a typical thing is going to read some data from a resource, display that data on the page, maybe have some input buttons or form fields or forms to change or update that data. So you can that will encompass a lot of different things, and I can, as we go into project week, I can show you old projects to sort of get a feel for what people have done before. Yeah. So basically, front end interactive web page. Does that answer what you're asking?
For sure.
Cool. Cool. Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
And yeah.
So I'm also one of the repeaters. So I've gone through all these labs before, but in the time that I had between the last cohort and this one, I was trying to learn through other resources like Udemy, where it's a little more freeform as far as like the tests go. And so I've been struggling this time around going through the labs, conforming to the tests, because like I'll put in my code and it's like I know this code works.
Yeah.
But then it's not passing the tests, and it's kind of been driving me insane.
Yeah, for sure. And again, there's kind of like two takes you can take from that too. Making the test pass is some tests are pickier than others, and making them pass can be a little bit trickier, especially if it's like, maybe this one is expecting you to return something, this one is expecting you to console log something, this one is expecting you to change something and looks at that value, or it has to be in a specific format with maybe there's an extra space in somewhere, it's not matching the exact string. So it's a fun puzzle for me at least. Other people may not feel the same way. It's a fun puzzle to see like, okay, cool, what exactly is it looking for and what exactly am I doing and what's different here, and how can I change that? So you can kind of look at it, you can kind of look at the tests as like a puzzle to solve, or flip side, you can be like, I know for sure 100% I know what I'm doing here. I know it's doing what I want to do. Maybe the test is too picky, but I know what I'm supposed to learn here. I've learned it. I got it down. The test can pass or not. I don't care. And that's really what I care about. Do you know the stuff? So if you are 100% sure you know the stuff and a test is not passing, that's fine. That's your call to, do I understand it? Yes. Yeah, so two different ways to deal with that. What else we got? Is there any lab or any part of anything that is that you're like totally stuck on? Anything you like me to talk about some, or anything that you kind of have but would like to get more detailed stuff on? Yeah, Zani.
Hey, yeah, and so this question it relates more to the tests, but at one point in the prep, it kind of talked about the philosophy of, you know, a lot of times you should really like create the actual test first that's going to, you know, define what you want the code to do and then kind of code for that test. So I'm curious, just like based on kind of what you said, and I guess this question also ties to kind of when you're actually working like out in the,
Mhm.
you know, in the real deal. Is it is it really true that, you know, the test is kind of like a pillar of like how things work, or is it like, you know, like you said, just get the code to do what we need to do, don't worry about tests? Like how often is that really a thing when you're really kind of out in the field?
Yeah, it really depends on the place. Some places are super strict test first, test driven development, and it might even be a separate team. So like you have your product team is telling you what it should do. There's a testing team that writes tests that says, great, when these tests are satisfied, this feature is done, and then you write to their tests. Sometimes it's the same person writing the tests while they're working on it. Sometimes you'll work on stuff and then write the test afterwards just to double check. Um, some people just kind of go on vibes and just hope for the best. Twitter. So yeah, it varies wildly. The ideal is, yeah, you will be able to describe your perfect application. You'll be able to describe every feature. You'll be able to write complete tests that exercise every aspect of it, and then you'll be able to write it. And when your tests are done, you'll be done. I don't think I've ever seen that ideal version in practice, but I've definitely seen people who like test first, write to the tests. Um, and it kind of depends on where that team might be. You might start off with the best intentions of doing test driven stuff, and then it's like, oh, we got to launch this feature next week. We just got to code until it works and pray for the best, and then go back and fix it later. And you never go back and fix it later. So yeah, it varies place to place. I think it's a good habit to get into. I don't always follow it myself when I'm doing my own stuff. I try to sometimes, but sometimes you just want to like knock a thing out. And it's kind of like a spectrum between like capital D development and like hacking. I can like I'm just gonna throw together this quick web page to test this thing out, or like put together a quick toy or something. I'm not gonna write tests for that. But if I'm working with a team of a bunch of people who are all working on different things, and like all of this different stuff has to all work together, that's one of the advantages of writing tests and using those like that. Because if someone else writes something that breaks something that you worked on, and everyone's running tests before they check stuff in, that will go off, and they ideally won't be able to check their stuff in if they break your stuff in the process of doing it. But yeah, short version is kind of all over the place. It depends on where you wind up.
God, thank you.
Yeah, Holly.
Um, so I think one of my main kind of things that I've had trouble with over the pre-work
Your audio is kind of robot-y. Can't really.
Sorry, are you able to understand me?
Barely.
You know what? I might just ask this in the chat, and I'm having issues with this.
Cool. We'll jump back in and then we'll get to tears.
Hi. I think I'm just struggling with like what our priorities should be, especially this first week. I'm seeing a lot of modules in the phase one dashboard? So is it like we're expected to complete all those modules and then start the project, or do we start the project like this week? Or yeah, I guess the order of things.
Yeah, great question. So this week is pretty much going to be labs and exercises and practice, and lectures. So the lecture schedule is on the calendar. I'll be going through specific things for the rest of the week. And in the mornings, I'll be posting a list of like, here are the labs to concentrate on today, or shoot for getting done for today. Not always achievable, but it's like what we want to shoot for. And so ideally, in a perfect world, by the end of this week, you should have everything that you need to know to pass the challenge and do the project. A second week, we're going to be doing review in the first part. So we'll do sample challenges, we'll go over labs, we'll do review sessions. And then next Thursday, we'll do our code challenge, and that'll be the test. And then the week after that is when the project really starts. I'll probably get you set up on Friday, get a partner, and kind of start taking pitches. But week 3 is going to be when you're working on the project. So you don't need to worry about the project or anything until then.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Holly says, one of the main issues I'm having with lessons we've done so far is understanding the practical application of certain features. How often do you use arithmetic via JavaScript when designing my pages? More often than you'd think. Way more often than you'd think. But yeah, that's a fantastic question, and one that is asked all the time. What is the practical application of this? Yeah, so there's kind of like 2 flavors, more than 2 flavors, I'm sure, but like off the top of my head, 2 main flavors of like practicality. One is like doing the thing. I want to, put this text on the page with JavaScript when someone clicks a button. I want to grab some information from a server. That's like I have a thing I want to do. What's the recipe for putting that together? And we've got plenty of that. But then there's kind of like the Karate Kid flavor of like, oh, I need to learn how to write a function, or else I can't do any of that. I need to know what I can do with an array or an object. And so we kind of like do the wax on, wax off with those. They aren't immediately applicable. Like, oh, I need to write functions to do different kinds of math, or I need to manipulate strings or arrays in certain ways. That won't necessarily be doing a thing that you would do in the real world, but they do exercise that the fundamentals there. So when it's time to go fetch something from a server and display it on a page, you don't have to think, oh, I need to put together a string in this way. What are different ways I can put together a string? When I get my data back, it's going to be in an array or an object. How do I manipulate that in certain ways? Hopefully you've done enough, quote unquote, useless stuff to sort of like burn that part in, so you can not have to worry about that part and then think about the actual, like executing the actual recipe. Does that help? Is that kind of what you're asking? Awesome. Yeah. Short version, not immediately applicable, but good practice. Awesome. Isaiah.
Okay, Karate Kid here. Can I share my screen? Because I don't know what I'm doing incorrectly.
Yeah, please go ahead.
All right, let's do it.
Sure, that is something that you can do. Boom. There we go. Okay, cool. Go for it. What are we looking at?
I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Functional function above my terminal. Scuba greeting for feet gives customers a free sample if the ride is less than or equal to 400. I thought I did it, but I didn't.
So where are you getting that ride from there on line 3?
I kind of made it. I did that myself. So what would I do there then?
Yeah, cool. So this is the kind of the debugging stuff. Let's look at the test.
Okay. Let me bring it back. Sorry.
Yeah. Can you actually bump up the font size just a little bit?
Say that again.
Can you bump up the font size a little bit? You got a big old screen.
On a terminal?
On both actually, yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Oops.
That
Cool.
work?
Back at that test there, the index test. The one we're looking for is that first one. It gives customers a free sample of the ride. So, so the way the test is written, it's expecting when you call Scuba Greeting for feet 199, it wants that to equal this thing. So how is it calling that function?
The scuba greeting?
On line 6 there, yeah.
Scuba greeting for fee 199.
Cool. So where it's passing in that 199 to the function. So let's take a look at your function. How would you get that value when that function is called?
I'm not sure. I'm drawing a brain fart.
Cool. So let's look at your code again. So we're defining the function on line 1 there, right?
Yes.
What are the different parts here? We've got our function keyword saying function. We've got the name, and we've got those parentheses. What are those parentheses doing for you?
That is for my argument.
Yeah. So, and this is how when we call it with a number, we're going to put a variable name in there to catch that. So if you are checking ride on line 3, what would you want to put there to catch that number?
Ride.
Yeah, for sure. So when it calls it, it's going to put whatever number it's calling in ride, and then you can use that for whatever you want inside the function. In this case, it looks like you're checking it and returning the thing. So let's look at the test one more time. So it's expecting it when it calls this function, it's expecting this one is on me to be returned. So let's look at your function again. How would we return that value when it's called? Kind of giving it away, I guess, but
I would return it.
Yeah, so instead of result equals, say return this one is on me. And you don't need the equal sign there.
Okay.
Cool. So if that ride is equal to 400, return that. What's it going to return if it's not? Just looking at your code there.
$20. That'll be $20. That will be $20.
Yeah, well, let's go back and look at your function as is now. And this doesn't have to do with this test. It's just an idle question, kind of playing with it. As it is now, if ride is less than 400, what's it going to return?
This one is on me.
Or if ride is less than 400.
Oh, that will be $20.
Is that what it's doing now?
No, this is greater than.
Yeah. So what is this one returning now if it's less than 400?
Nothing.
Yeah. More specifically, undefined.
Okay.
So yeah, the functions are always going to return something, even if it's just undefined. So let's run that test again and see what happens. Optimistic, but we'll see. 0 passing. Gives a free sample. So let's look at it again. You're returning the string, this one is on me, capital T. Let's look at the test one more time.
Oh, I don't. Syntax.
Yeah, there we go. This is a case of the test being picky.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So it's expected undefined to equal, this one is on me. So again, let's look at what the test is saying. Gives customers a free sample in the ride if it's less than or equal to 400 feet. Let's take a look at your code. And what is line 3 doing there?
Oh, this is greater than.
Yeah.
Does it matter in which direction you or in which order you put the arrow and equal sign? Are they interchangeable?
I think it always needs the greater than less than first.
Okay.
So cool. I'm pretty confident about this one. How do you feel?
As confident as you.
Hey, look at that. We did it.
All right. Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
I
So
think I'm very good now. I just need
so the important part here is like looking at the error message, especially like what it's getting and what it's expecting. We saw like before it was getting undefined when it was expecting the string. So we know that we're returning undefined. So something was happening in there for whatever reason, whether it was not matching the exact string, not greater than, less than. Always trust the error message. You can always, most of the time trust the tests. It's just a matter of like literally just a matter of attention to detail, which is real hard for everyone, and just taking the time to kind of like step through it. Sometimes I use a metaphor of like pulling on a thread in a sweater or something. That error message is like the end of the thread, and this is a relatively simple one. Sometimes you just have to keep following it and be like, okay, cool, this is calling that's returning this is taking in, it's calling this other function, just kind of like drilling down until you reach the part like, okay, cool, I found where the snag is. How do I fix that? Yeah, it's just detective work.
All right, thanks, Mark, appreciate it.
Hi, Ro.
Yeah, I have noticed that like when it comes to writing functions, like the functions that I write feel like a lot more like basic. And I'm wondering, like, I'm having a hard time seeing like the practicality of it. Like I get HTML and CSS and how that applies to like web pages, but I'm having a hard time being like, okay, like I understand functions are important, but I'm like, how do I like, am I just doing a lot of like DOM manipulation to kind of like practice those skills? Because like I'm just all like, I don't know. It feels, I don't know.
Yeah.
Functions are not my favorite either.
Yeah, gonna be using functions all the time. Like this one, like this has no practical value at all, right? It's like got a locked in 400 number. It's got this specific strings. You're never going to write anything that looks like that. But what it is doing is helping you practice. How do I take in a value? How do I return a value? How do I check for something? And even though you're not going to be doing those exact same things, you'll definitely be writing functions all the time that use those mechanics for sure. And so this is just, you could get reps by just writing the same one over and over again, theoretically, but our brains do not like that. We need variation. Even if the variation is kind of useless, the practice part is the important part.
Okay, so right now just focus on like pulling things, putting things in scope. Okay, cool.
Myself. Yep.
Yeah.
I missed some chats. Awesome. These are great questions. What else do we have? And kind of your question actually reminded me of something, or maybe think of something. Talking about it being simple, and like the first thing that my brain went to before actually listening to the rest of your question was because there are different ways of writing the same functionality, right? And sometimes it feels like you're writing like too much code, or you're taking too many steps, or using too many variables or something. And it feels like, oh, I'm doing this code. It's like taking 10 lines, and I like looked at the solution, it's 2 lines. Why am I doing all these extra steps and stuff? I have my 3 rules of programming are, rule number 1, make it work. If it works, it's right. It doesn't matter if you do it in 1 line or 20 lines. At the end of the day, if the code that you're writing is doing what it's supposed to do, it is correct. However you get there is great. And rule 2 is more like, is it easy to understand or debug or update? And that's where it's like, oh, like if I have a whole bunch of stuff, how can I, not make it simpler for simplicity's sake? Because that can lead to down a bad road where you're like, your whole function is in one line and it takes an hour to figure out what it does. But making things understandable, either to you when you go back to look at it later, or to other people on your team, writing code that is easy to see what it does at a glance, easy to update if you need to change something, easy to debug when you debug it. That's kind of like the second rule. And then like the last consideration is like making it efficient. We're using JavaScript. JavaScript is not an efficient language. That's the very last thing you should worry about. But yeah, rule 1, I'm going to talk about all the time. Make it work. However you are able to make it work, that's great. And then you can worry about refactoring and making it prettier later. Cool. What other questions do we have? Are we feeling good pace to get through some stuff for the rest of the day? Kind of. Awesome. Yeah, Megan.
I actually I posted a question in the chat, but basically, yeah, with those coding tests that we have to do, is it like one chance and that's it, or are we allowed to kind of debug what we're failing at?
Great question. So the way it's going to work is I'll put up a repo for you. You make a copy of that repo and bring it down. That repo should have tests in it. So for the full 90 minutes, you can work on it, run the tests and everything at your leisure on your own machine. At the end of the 90 minutes, that's when we're going to submit stuff. So you can work on it, run tests and all that locally as much as you want. There's only like the submission is when time is up, show me what you got. So you can, if I'm understanding what you're asking, you can run tests as many times as you want. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yes. I didn't know if it was like you submit and then like that's it. You just get the one chance.
You submit by sending the URL your GitHub repo to me, and I look through it manually. So you're all good.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, did you have a question, David?
Okay.
Yeah. Are you unmuted when you think you're muted? Cool. This is a great question. What is the real benefit of using a ternary statement versus just a regular if-else statement? If one of the main things we're working on is making our work readable for future reference, wouldn't it be ultimately better to just write things out as clear as possible, even though it takes multiple lines? Yes, absolutely. For this phase, 100%. They are relatively interchangeable. There's a technical difference between them. Basically, there's two kinds of things in JavaScript. There's statements and expressions. An expression is anything that returns a value. So like the number 2, a string, this plus that. A ternary is a expression. It returns the value. So if you want to assign something to a variable, there's a couple different ways of doing it. You could say, set my variable up top. If this, then set the variable to something else, set it to something else. Or you could do a ternary, my variable equals this question mark, that colon, whatever. Right now, they are pretty interchangeable, and you can use whichever one looks better to you, makes more sense, the one that you're able to get working. When we go to phase 2, ternaries will be used for a specific reason. And so I encourage folks to play with them because they're kind of cool. But if a regular if-else statement works better for you, 100% use that. Yeah, there's no moral difference between them. they're equivalent in code mostly. What else we got? Cool. Yeah, whatever the long view there. Anything else I want to touch on? Basics here. Yeah, the function stuff is the function stuff JavaScript wise is the most important stuff right now, I think, because that's literally what you're going to be using every single day from now on, and just learning, you know, the difference between logging something and returning it, how to bring stuff into the functions, how to use scope to make sure what happens in the function stays in the function. These things are basics. The labs, get through them, kind of get an overview, practice as much as you're able to. You'll be using them literally every day, so you will definitely get practice as you go along. If something doesn't click or make sense 100% right now, just like, and everyone has a different strategy. Some people need to understand everything. I tend to kind of like skim and then go back in detail once I get the bigger picture. Different brains are different. So yeah, do whatever you need to do for your brain to help understand that. But no, you definitely 100% will be getting extensive practice with functions and scope and all that as we go forward. Yeah. And so tomorrow, we'll be jumping right into DOM manipulation and focusing on that. So how much of the stuff that we're going to use tomorrow? We'll definitely be calling a lot of functions. We'll probably be using all the stuff that we're learning today tomorrow. And again, if it's not 100% locked in, totally fine. Follow along as best as you can, and you will get those reps if you're doing the work. Eileen, yeah.
Yeah, hi. I thought my hand would automatically go down. Okay. I just was wondering if you'd be able to provide the labs that we're meant to be prioritizing on a daily basis. Like, are you able to provide that framework ahead of time instead of just day by day, and kind of then allow us to maybe plan out that phase a bit better and understand how things are building to other parts? And then I also noticed there are no time estimates for any of these modules like there were for the prep. So if there's any of that information that could be shared, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, we don't have time estimates for those because these are the real deal. So everyone's going to take different parts. I have that document open right now. I'm going to paste it in chat for you, and I will. That's not going to work. Let me paste it in chat for you. I'll also add it to the links. I'll pin it to the channel. This is a rough overview of where we're going to be for phase 1. I have one of these for phase 2 as well. Phases 3 and 4 have been changed up, so we'll have to wait and see those when they come. But this should give you a general idea of about where we're going to be. Some things have been moved around, like GitHub is right up front now. Yeah, I don't know that this document is updated with the curriculum, but it should be pretty much there. But I will definitely be posting an accurate version as we go along. But this should give you everything looks pretty good.
Okay, yeah, this is what I was looking for. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome. I'll remind myself to paste that in the channel over here. Cool, yeah. Awesome. Thanks for asking. Azani.
Yep. All right. So one question I have, there are so in seeing the doc that you just shared, some content as far as like the modules that are in Canvas isn't there yet.
Yeah.
I can presume that's intentional, but I wanted to know that it would be cool to be able to see that stuff as soon as possible in case we can dig in, however kind of jump around. But just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, I'm generally a fan of making everything available upfront and letting you pick through stuff. Again, some instructors turn different things on and off, and we're all using.
Okay.
So I'll go through again and make sure everything that's turned on needs to be turned on. There are certain practice things that we leave until next week, just so we can do them all at once. But for the most part, everything should be opened up as soon as possible. I'll make sure that's a thing.
Cool. Yeah, and one quick thing. I know that you're saying that we're going to go through the DOM tomorrow. I think that would be one that we definitely want to get up because like JavaScript and the DOM is not there yet. But yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, look at that. It is not. Oh, here. Publish module and all items. Cool. It is up now. Yeah, some of these are not. I'm going to open them up right now while we're here.
Perfect.
Thanks
so much.
For be open. Cool. Yeah. There's no reason for those to be shut down. Cool. And did you have a question?
It was the same thing. I
Okay.
was looking at the DOM stuff and it wasn't there.
This is not. Yeah, I'm just going to open all these up for you. They should definitely all be open. Cool. I'm gonna leave the practice stuff. But yeah, so all the content should be up now. Done. Great. Thank you for pointing that out. I wouldn't have caught that till later on. All right. What else we got? Anyone I haven't heard from yet have any questions, thoughts, comments, feelings, trivia?
Did you mean to open like applier learning and additional practice and all of that as well?
Did I mean to? Maybe.
They're not open. That's why I'm asking.
Oh yeah, no, they're not open. No. Yeah, so the those will be next week's review stuff. I think the combining the 3 pillars, putting it all together stuff, that's up to what we'll be doing this week.
Okay, great.
If folks are desperate to get into it later on, let me know and I'll open it up. Oh yeah, look at that. I'm gonna open this one up too. There's some lower down that are also useful but not required. Yeah, all the object-oriented stuff, inheritance and stuff. JavaScript is a fully object-oriented language. You'll be hearing that going forward. You'll be hearing people talk about how object-oriented this language or that is. Python's also an object-oriented language. JavaScript is arguably more object-oriented than Python, although you will often hear claims otherwise. We don't really focus on it. It's nice to know, and you'll definitely be using built-in object stuff without needing to build your own necessarily, but it's cool. It's fun stuff to learn. Super useful for organizing stuff. It's not required. It's down at the bottom. So if you get bored, you want to mix it up, go and hit some of that stuff. Or if you want to ignore it completely, ignore it completely. It'll always be there. It'll always be there. Not true. It will be there for a while through the course, and I think for either 30 or 90 days after, and then they sort of like close down access so they can save resources or whatever in Canvas. However, you'll notice that every single thing in Canvas has a little GitHub icon up top. Every item in Canvas has a GitHub repo. All of those GitHub repos are 100% available to everyone enrolled or not all the time. So if there's stuff you want to definitely make sure you keep track of, you can pop open the repo and star it or keep track of the links or whatever. Those will always be good until GitHub goes down sometime in the distant future. Yeah, cool. Nope. Right now. Great. What other questions do we have? All right, going once. Cool. These have all been great questions. Exactly the kind of stuff I want to hear. Feel free as we go forward, ask more stuff like this in the channel. yeah, any clarifications or anything you need, any questions, whether it's about coding or about the program or technical stuff about Canvas, always there. So just drop that in the channel and we will get you sorted out as soon as possible. Otherwise, we'll let you go, and so you can do a little bit more. And the lunch break is coming up, and then after that, in about an hour or so, there'll be the program orientation at Zoom link on the calendar. Any last thing before we sign off? Cool. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you all at Stand Down.